not getting any audio on the stream. From you, at least. I'm hearing it on mine, but I'm hearing what I'm coming through the stream, but you're not. And my audio is really quiet for some reason.
Did I screw that up? Can you hear it now? Does it work now?
Yeah, we're both super quiet.
Okay, well, I'm going to turn myself up then. And then here, I'm going to turn you up. Speak now.
Speaking.
Alright, tell me if that's better.
I'm better.
Okay, so I just need to be a little louder.
You're still quiet.
Okay, well, that I can't do much about. Unfortunately, I'm just going to be quiet. Just don't, peak too much because I had to turn your volume in Discord up. So if you yell in here, it's going to blow my eardrums out. Anyway, so now that you guys can hear me, what I was saying was, welcome to the family. Our late night deep talk, goofy, talk about life type podcast. I'm one of your hosts, that Vanguard, aka Brad. With me, as always, my hetero life mate, best friend, and brother, Leader D, aka Seth. On this podcast, we talk about life, we talk about our interests, goings-ons. Occasionally, we might have a topic, and we might talk about current things or whatever's going on in life. It's inspired by our high school late night talks, where we would stay up late and talk about deep things way too early in the morning. But yeah, so expect the podcast. You're getting an extra one this week, today, and then we'll do another recording, episode 2, on Friday, and that'll end up being our normal time. So, with that, like I said, this is my co-host, Leader D. Say hello and whatnot.
We've already talked a little bit so far, but hello everyone. This is my first time being on a live stream or in a video, really. So
And
be gentle.
the trash truck on fire. Probably coined by
just a roving garbage can.
yeah.
We'll figure it out though.
Hey, the big thing is we're working on it. It can only get better.
We have nowhere to go but up from here.
Absolutely. And if you're watching now or VOD later, comment how the audio is. We're working on
tips.
it. We're working on it, and also tell us what you like, what you don't like. I know we're kind of dark, but we're also not professionals, so. Anyways.
Kind of a lighting setup here. I don't know. Let's see how it looks on the stream. Turn it up a little bit.
You're probably better lit than I am, to be.
That's a little better.
There you go.
You need to get rid of this glare that's back here. I was looking at the stream, trying to put up my other hand. I'm flipped on the stream, so it's actually funny. I meant to get when I got the paint for this wall. I meant to get matte finish, and I was like, we were getting paint for all the rooms that we were painting, and they were like, "Well, what finish do you want on these?" And I was like, satin, I guess." And I didn't think about that they were doing black too. So.
Oh jeez.
Now I just have this glare back here, which I was trying to avoid. But.
Well, in fairness, I don't know if you originally planned on putting streams into mind. When you
Actually, that was kind of the goal. Which kind of, in a way, kind of rolls into sort of what I wanted to address in this podcast. Because for those of you listening, the idea that we're gonna have, or that we have, is that we're gonna be kind of both bringing a topic to the podcast to talk about, and kind of have discussions about, our thoughts and feelings on things. And for me, it was I figured the best thing to talk about for the first podcast was why podcasting. Um, so if you don't mind me taking the floor for a
Yeah,
minute,
of course. You're the co-host.
uh, I I'm really glad that you agreed to this opportunity, because I kind of mentioned it before the other night, but like I've always wanted to do something like this. I just never really like. I don't know if I don't think it's like a confidence issue. I think it was more of like, oh, there's a lot of work that goes into this, and so I wanted to wait until I had kind of a setup, and I wanted to wait until like I knew what I was doing, because you know how I like to like wait until I understand things before I
Yeah.
go in them, at least when they're like important. And but I've been like, when I was a kid, I used to record myself on tape recorders,
Mhm.
which might age me a little bit, but I don't care. I had a little tape recorder with like just a shitty microphone, and I would record myself talking to my friends, and I would just listen to those and think like, man, one day I want to like reach people, And so, um, I know that you have tried to entice me to do streaming a couple of times,
Yeah.
and it just never bites, because I'm like, but like I got to do this, and I want to have audio quality, and I want to have lighting quality, and I want
Well,
to have a setup, and I'm kind of sitting here with those things that I've been saying I wanted. So I'm actually gonna turn this. Well, no. But I um, but yeah, I'm kind of sitting here like I've got. I mean, it's not the best microphone, but I've got a microphone. I've got some lights going on. I've got kind of a backdrop thing behind me. I'm really kind of waiting for the funds to come through to like get a better camera and a way to set it up, maybe like a full stand and like an actual camera, and
mhm.
then I maybe will have like the confidence in my setup to like maybe start a stream or something. But this is a fun thing to do. It's a reason for us to just sit and chill and talk and hang out, and it's my first like dip of the toe into putting content out. So it's pretty great. Um,
It's exciting. It's
yeah,
exciting for sure.
it
And
is. It is. And you've been kind of content creating for a little while.
yeah, off and
Um,
on.
I haven't had the ability to like actually check out any of your streams because of my work schedule, but
Yeah.
um, I'm excited to be a part of it.
Yeah, I mean,
So
and
what
one,
about what about you? What like
well, one big thing for me, just to kind of go off what you said with like, oh, I need to have this and I would like to have that. I felt that for a long time, and a big part of it was my living situation. I didn't really have my own space to do so. So it was hard because one big thing you kind of need with streaming is, you know, a little bit of peace and quiet, or, content creation. You can't just have some random person walking by in the background. I guess you could, but you generally don't want those variables. So I was always very like,
Yeah, it's kind of like a thing you can only get away with if you're like a bigger streamer and like you have
yeah.
you know.
And or at least have the people around you would have to be like understanding of stream culture and all that stuff. But
Right.
for the big thing that they say, and I do stand by it because to a certain level it's very true. And I had to eventually, concede to it, is that it doesn't matter what camera you have, what audio you have. It doesn't matter. If you have a camera, the ability to turn, to flip the switch and start streaming, or, making a video or something, it doesn't matter if it's all junk. If it works, then do it, because then you're missing out on, possibly, really good ideas, and people are
Right.
missing your content.
My
And
The reason why I hesitated about it for so long was not because like I was worried that people weren't going to like enjoy and accept it. It was kind of like a me thing. It's like I have this image in my head for what my content would look like, and it never has like it the image in my head or that scenario in my head never has poor audio and video quality. You know what I mean? I want to be able
No,
to get myself out there in the best way that I can.
kind of
So
perfectionist.
a little bit, yeah. I know that I've got kind of like this deep sultry voice, which is a little bit deeper and whatnot right now because I've been sick, but um
Yeah.
I don't want a crappy microphone that won't pick it up, and I which is kind of part of the reason why I got this microphone, because I always wanted to have good audio quality for like gaming purposes and stuff like that,
Mhm.
but with like when I got my PC, which I'm fairly new to the PC gaming world, just because I never had one or the money to get one. Like when I got this PC, after we moved back to the state, um, I my immediately was was, uh, like my one of my first thoughts was like I could maybe do this. Like I could maybe start making content. And,
Yeah.
you go into the thoughts of like, well, what content would I even make, right? And then and then I kind of thought, well, like, okay, well, I need to have audio quality first of all, because that's the most important. Like, even if my video quality is trash, then at least people will still be able to hear me, you know.
Yeah.
So,
Which,
and I stutter and mumble a lot, so it's important to have like clear, crisp audio.
but yeah, to hear all the mumbles and stutters. Um,
Right,
I
right.
mean, it makes sense though, considering you have a bit of a background in music, that audio would be king with you. Um,
Well, that's one of the tips that I hear the most when I see content creators making videos about like how to start streaming or what you should do if you start wanting to make videos or content. Every single one of them, every single time, is like have good audio. It's the first thing that they all say,
that's true.
and it makes sense because the
It's
if
definitely the most off-putting part if you go into a
yeah,
stream or a video
well,
and it sounds like it's being recorded on a 2006 360 mic.
right, well, like if I can throw a shout out real quick, shout out to Critical Role. If you go in and watch their recordings of their first campaign, a lot of people have a lot of trouble watching through the first 25 to I think it's like up to 28 episodes. The first 28 episodes are the ones that people skip, for a number of reasons. But one of the reasons is because like for the first like 20 episodes of their show, their audio quality kept doing this weird thing where like people's voices would become like very mechanical and robotic, like roboty sounding, like
hmm
and there would be like static and parts of it would cut out, and it can be difficult to listen to.
Yeah. Well, and that actually kind of goes to a question I had, that I know I can speak on, but I'd love to hear your answer, and I assume Critical Role is one of them. Who are your inspirations in the content creating field? Streamers, YouTubers, etc. That you kind of look to
Um,
like that's the kind of content I want to make.
well, there's a couple parts to that question, so let's break it down. Um, what I'm hearing is like who are the content creators or what are the reasons that inspire me to make content, and what kind of content creators am I trying to emulate? That's what I'm hearing.
Sure.
So, um, that's a good question. I entered um like the whole content consumption thing a lot later than a lot of people. Like there are people like PewDiePie and Asmongold and people like that have been making YouTube videos for 10, 12, 15 years, and I have not been consuming content that long. I really didn't start consuming content in a regular serious manner until like on the YouTube and Twitch and stuff like that. Like I didn't even open Twitch or make an account on Twitch until like 2016.
That sounds about right.
Like that was about when I started getting on Twitch. Like I was kind of like watching a lot of YouTube at the time as well, like around like 2014, 2015, um because I was in the military and I had my own phone finally, and then that's when smartphones really started to pick up and get huge.
Yeah.
Um, right about the time of, well, I guess maybe not. This is right about the time of like the iPhone 5 is when I kind of came in, because I bought, that's what I bought, was the iPhone 5 was new at the time.
Yeah.
And
And to
this was,
clarify for a lot of people, me and you grew up in an area that did not have internet
yeah,
conducive
yeah,
for that.
I was getting to that. Part of, like you said, so part of the reason is like, unfortunately, my dad is the type that is like, no, if we have the internet in this house, then people are gonna steal our identity and know where we live and this and that. And it's like, okay, well, I
Okay,
get where you're
boomer.
coming from, Dad, but like, do you have a bank account? Yes. Then your information's on the internet. Like,
Uh,
like, but he's I think old fashioned is the best way to put it. He's not really,
I get
it's
this.
just, it kills me because he's like, no, no internet in this house. It just increases the chances of people stealing our identity, and he's right. But like, he also has two smartphones, like a work phone and a personal phone,
Yeah.
like, and they're both smartphones that have internet. Like,
And it's a little funny because it's like I imagine part of me imagines that his kind of visualization of those type of people are like the 90s, on the keyboard. Oh, I'm
yeah,
in.
with their fucking hood up, just
The
like
if you
ready to join
remember
in.
the
Like,
the old video on
it's
like
like the
VHSs, you wouldn't steal a car or you wouldn't download a car.
Yeah, dude. Or you wouldn't steal a woman's purse. It's like people did actually do all of those things you said we wouldn't do. Like, and people have
Yeah.
been stealing identity long before the internet existed. But
Yeah.
it was just easy. It was just easier to get away with, I think. But anyway, I didn't have internet growing up, so it wasn't until I bought my own, like my first smartphone, which
Mhm.
was the iPhone 5. It was like the 5S or something like that I had, but it's the iPhone 5, and I suddenly, and you know how big this is for me, because like every time I would come over to your house, I'm like, ooh, the internet, I'm gonna like check MySpace, and
Yeah.
God, I sound old right now, but like, I'm gonna
No,
check
but
MySpace,
that's
and
that's what we did.
I'm gonna watch the same 4 or 5 YouTube videos over and over, because I like them and I know that they're good, and I don't yet understand the vastness that is YouTube.
Yeah.
And um and I just didn't get access to the internet often enough to like branch out, And so now we like skip forward back up to like 2014, 2014, and suddenly have access to the entirety of the internet,
Right.
and I can do whatever I want. I own the phone that is allowing me to connect. I can get on whatever I want, and so um, I was still so new at the time that consuming content wasn't something that I was watching Netflix, like I'm not on my phone, but like on my laptop and stuff like that. But like I hadn't really delved into the world of content, like on YouTube, Twitch, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So fast forward a little bit to 2016, I'm at my second duty station, and I'm working this admin job where I'm at a desk all day long sorting through medical records,
Right.
right? And I'm like losing my mind, losing my, just,
Mind
I
numbing.
can't. So I think I was talking to you about, like, I'm like, not sure what I like I was talking to you or somebody about like wanting to watch, and so I had friends that were like watching YouTube while working, and I'm like, we can do this, and they're like, yeah, they don't care, as long as you're getting your work done, and you're maintaining like HIPAA and stuff like that. They don't really care what you do as long as it's getting done. And I'm like, sick. So I started listening to like, I got into the whole side of YouTube that is um like content creator, like curated, like study mixes and stuff like that. And there's a bunch that are like so old now that like they have gone off YouTube after like the whole DMCA issues and stuff like that. And um and I think I was talking to you about, like, you're like, hey, like I watch like this is also when Destiny was first like kind of come out and
The
been like
heyday.
being cool, and you were like, hey, like you know that people like stream Destiny on Twitch. You can watch that like while you're at work, and I'm like, oh fuck. I'm like I'm like I can do, you know, in my mind I'm like I can do that. So
Yeah.
I make a Twitch account and I start watching. The first stream that I watched on Twitch was the first Guardian Con marathon stream.
Yes.
And yeah, and I pull it up and there is, and I'm gonna shout out, I don't know if she makes content anymore, like if she streams or anything like this anymore, but the first stream I pull up or the first person that's on this stream that I see is um her name on Twitch was BurnBXX. Um
Right. I remember.
or, or like I think before that it was like Burnett Beauty or something like that, and she was dressed up as Pikachu for like donation incentive or something like that, and you know, streaming Destiny, and I'm like, wow, this chick is awesome. And she was actually the first stream that I subbed to as well. I started watching her every single day,
Mm-hmm.
um, and it kind of took off from there. I started getting on YouTube and Twitch and following people, and now I follow more people and I'm subscribed to more YouTube channels than I can even think of. So I think that the answer to get off of my long-winded
Yeah.
story here, because and one thing you know about me and that people will learn about me is that I always have to set everything up. Like I
Yep.
have to have this big, like you have to, like I have to give context for things because I like to have context.
Of course.
So fast forward to the answer to the question, which I think the person that inspired me to even start thinking about making content was probably her.
Right.
Just because I gotta pop my ears again. Oh man, I'm coming off being sick, like I said. So. But I think the person that inspired me for the first time to make content was her, because suddenly I'm sitting here and it's just mind blowing to me that I'm watching someone who is just streaming a video game from their, you know, like their, I don't know what room it is in her house. I don't know her, but like presumably from like her bedroom or an office,
Mm-hmm.
and making a living doing this. And
Right.
I was like, I'm just sitting here like, wow, that's something I would want to do.
Yeah.
And I immediately made the connection to like, this is the same thing as like when I used to sit and record things with my friends as like, you know, a young teenager. Um, and I think some of the other people on Twitch, you know, like I think you and I both kind of got into like King Gothelion,
Yeah.
Professor Broman,
Still watch Gothalion to this day.
a few others, you know, just to name a couple. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that other than Burn, I think as far as content creation and being inspired to want to do it, and this may come as a surprise to you, may not, but you and I both used to watch a streamer on Twitch. She's not on Twitch anymore, but her Twitch name was Danny Coon, and we both used to interact with her a lot. It was she's a smaller streamer,
I remember.
um, like never. I don't think she ever got more than like maybe 100 viewers at a time. Like seven, like hovering around like the 40 to 70 range if
Right.
you count. Uh, really like relatively small, but still large enough to be affiliate stream. Small enough community that everybody was interacting and we were playing games together. And you know, I was not only watching but also kind of a part of the stream for multiple occasions over the course of like a year and a half, 2 years.
Yeah,
All
I
of
think
us
we all
playing
played together.
Destiny and being friends, and there was a bunch of drama that happened, and she kind of fell off the face of the earth for her own, you know, like mental health and safety and stuff like that. So, so that's that. But like, it was really inspiring to me because this was the first time, I guess, that was the first time really that I was a part of a stream. This is the first time I'm directly a part of a stream as like
Mm-hmm.
on face and on voice. But in those streams, like I was kind of a part of it in that I was helping the creator make content, and it kind of switched something in me that I was like, I was excited not just to play with my new and pretty good friends at the time, but I was also excited to be helping make content
Right.
and being a personality in this person's stream. So, so who am I looking to emulate, or who inspires me to? I guess the other question is like, who inspires me to do a given kind of content based on what they do?
Yeah.
Is that kind of what you're asking? Um, right now, to be honest, because I want to create the kind of content that I would like to consume, right?
Right.
To be honest, right now, I think my biggest inspiration is Asmongold.
Really.
Uh, really, and part of that is because back when the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard trial was going on, was when I discovered him because he was covering it, and not covering it in like a news like clickbaity type of. He was just kind of watching the stream or watching the court case and like pausing and doing commentary and talking about it, and it led me to continue it led me to sub and continue to consume the content where he is addressing an issue or a video or something other than his like normal World of Warcraft, MMORPG type content, but
Right.
it's actual like addressing of like world events and current news and stuff like that. And I'm not sure that I would want to cover current news, but I like I like the I like React content, and I like content creators that not don't just like. Well, I do like content creators that just look at memes on Reddit and stuff like that, but I get more excited for content creators who are like putting something out and adding to the conversation as opposed to just reacting to something funny and having a laugh, and
Right. Has
Asmongold
substance.
stops, has conversations, shuts people down that are saying dumb stuff, takes an objective, non-biased position on everything that he talks about, and that's the kind of thing I want people to say about me if I start to create content. Is like, this is a guy who isn't swayed by bias, isn't adhered to a specific political agenda or position. Just a guy that sees what he sees and says what he talks about what he sees and has a conversation about it. And I think that is good content because it it allows for an avenue for everyone involved to grow.
Right. Right. That's. I mean, I didn't know you watched Asmongold. But no, that's
Fairly
awesome.
recently, yeah, but
For me, it's you kind of mentioned a few of them. King Gothalion, he's a big influence. I think the way he streams and a lot of his views on streaming culture are really insightful and really well thought out, considering he's someone who's been in the game for a long time. But even more than that, specifically with like the podcast that we're doing right now, and hopefully future podcasts, if I get the opportunity.
oh yeah,
Um,
podcasters in general have always been an inspiration to me for this type of thing because again, it is that content that I have always been interested in making.
yeah.
So, um,
But for
there's
me,
a few I could mention, but I don't want to. I don't want to be. I don't want assumptions to be made about my positions on things. I just, I watch a lot of podcasts,
okay.
so, or
Um,
listen to them. I
but
guess.
yeah, so for me, the inspirations are like kind of funny, and kind of funny games. They're same thing, but two different YouTube channels, and the way that they host things very professionally, even and that's kind of where I kind of got the whole garbage truck on fire, because that's one of their monikers is, oh, garbage truck on fire, things are gonna break, we roll with it.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but I like that they're entertaining, and they put out the best foot forward. You can always tell that they're giving it their all. They don't just phone things in.
I
Um,
guess because I feel like I was forgetting some. I guess I would have to address the fact that I do also watch a lot of like Dungeons and Dragons actual play content. So like Critical Role is obviously an inspiration. College Humor and specifically Dimension 20 and more specifically Brennan Lee Mulligan
he's
from
hilarious.
who's the Dungeon Master. He's hilarious.
He's funny, dude.
And he hosted, I don't know if he still does, I think he still does, but he hosts um a series with College Humor called Adventuring Academy, and it's where he kind of sits down. It's usually just him and one other person, and they're both like obviously he's into D&D, and whoever he has on either has something to do with D&D or writing slash world building,
Mhm.
and they just talk about that. So
Huh.
like maybe I would be interested in doing a series or a series of podcasts or something that are talking about like Dungeons and Dragons and its relationship to like storytelling and world building and stuff like that. So
Fair.
it could be a topic for a future podcast here.
Yeah. We'll definitely. I mean, I don't know about you, but one thing I do, and it's a little bit, from just watching other podcasters like Kind of Funny or Rooster Teeth, though I don't particularly watch them as much anymore. Um,
Yeah, with all the stuff that's come out.
well, I actually kind of just didn't have, I only have so much time in the day, and I'm either watching a stream, watching, your various She-Hulks or Andor or Stranger Things or whatever when I have time, or I'm watching like Kind of Funny stuff because I like that they do gaming news and nerd news and stuff, and
Right.
they also review stuff. So a lot of my time goes to watching that or watching some other content or playing games because
Bluetooth headphones, like Bluetooth earbuds, are my best friend because I don't have that time. Like the
yeah.
only time that I have to do that is like now when I'm sitting down, like after work, everyone else has gone to bed. I'm gonna be up for a few hours, so like that's when I have time. And usually I'm just playing games or talking to friends or whatever. But like throughout the day, as I'm doing things, and while I'm at work, I work in manufacturing, so like I don't deal with customers or anything like that. So I spend the whole day just working and listening to stuff, and so that's why I get a lot of I'm working 8 to 10 hour days, so I get a lot of podcasts, a lot of music, but a lot of podcasts in and stuff like that.
Yeah. And I mean, it's interesting the wide variety that you can find, but yeah, my big thing is just wanting to, like, I want, like, when I make podcast stuff, I want to do stuff that's you know informative. I would love to do eventually a news, like a gaming news thing, kind of funny. Just to talk about, the various things around the industry because that super interests me. I'm eventually trying to get into the industry myself. But along with that, I like that when they do podcasts, specifically the Kind of Funny podcast, it's just, what part of their rigmarole is, three or four best friends around this table, you know, and it shows that they're just a bunch of friends shooting the shit, talking about life, talking about their day, talking about random things that they do and quirks and giving each other shit and
Yeah, well,
all
and I
that.
was gonna ask you, on that note, like, uh, and I want to bring up a point before you answer, but um, like, I'm interested to know like what kind of things that you and I both, are kind of planning to avoid. And like for me, like right off the bat, like I hate when podcasts do, and some people do it in like a kind of a joking manner and don't really shift that much. But I hate. Well, I don't hate, but I don't really care to consume podcasts or long form content where they like break it up into segments and do little like games or whatever in their podcast. Like I prefer to be informed or to hear a conversation. I hate when it's like overproduced.
Um, I'm kind of like that. I mean, I don't like it to be, and this is our game show portion or anything, but,
Right.
if we're talking about, a random topic and we're like, can you guess what the top whatever that it's saying in the article is?
Yeah. Listen to
That's
the podcast for a certain word, and if you know if you find the word, then you win. And like that
yeah, I'm
stuff
not about
drives me
that, but I
nuts.
do like to make
It's like
little bits.
it's like when someone is a tryhard to the point of like to the point of cringe, where it's like if you would just chill out and
Yeah.
just be, we would have a better time. Like,
Yeah, I definitely agree. I don't, obviously, as shown by the first like 5 minutes, 10 minutes of the show, we're not overproduced. We're probably in fact underproduced. Um, and like I I'm sure we'll have bits and I'm sure we'll have inside jokes that
yeah,
come up and
absolutely.
shit, but like,
But like I
I'm
just
not
want
gonna
to
I'm not gonna
I
sit.
just want to avoid the like creating like overly produced like
Oh yeah,
try
no.
hard efforts to bring people in.
Yeah, no, no, no. I don't. We're just doing that. So for me, one thing I asked you earlier, well, just kind of brought the topic up, and you kind of brought it up as well. Um, Part of why I even want to do this podcast specifically, other than the fact that you're my best friend, and we've been doing this type of talking, God, for over a decade now, where we just it gets real late and we talk about random shit and you know
Yeah.
kind of drift through random thought processes and whatnot. But um, a big part of it is because you, for example, you have kids, and eventually someday I might. Um, but at the very least, in X amount of time, it'd be cool to look back and be like, "Yo, we were idiots," or
I
show.
don't know. I think it's more. I think there's something to be said about looking back and thinking like, oh, that's like realizing how you were and where you are. It's kind of like when people start like a weight loss journey and they take photos as they go. It's like
Of course.
remembering where you came from is, I think, and I don't want to. I mean, actually, I do want to get philosophical here. I think remembering where you came from
Hmm.
and can help you understand where you are.
Right.
And that's kind of why I started off in this conversation with kind of, or like that's kind of like when we, when you asked me about like the content creators that uh, influenced me and inspired me, is like I went through this whole like historical thing
Hmm.
because it's important to remember like where I came from and why I'm doing what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
But like if it wasn't for the fact that I started basically living a part of my life on the internet, um I wouldn't be in the place I am right now to even do this.
Hmm.
I would still be kind of just chilling here playing an Xbox, and just having thoughts and hopes and dreams that I'm never going to address.
Right.
It's, like remembering like, okay, at this time I was inspired to put together a setup, and now here I am with a backdrop, with a mic, with light, with a ring light, with
Hmm.
lights in my basement. So it's like,
It's definitely something to. It's interesting to see the progress, and obviously you just have your memories to go from where you were to where you are now. But
right, like
now
I would
with
give my
this,
left nut for those old recordings.
I wish we would have recorded more of our stupid conversations in high school. I imagine most of
We
them
had
would be
some deep
really
ones.
cringy,
And the funny
but
thing is, like, I don't remember. Here's the thing about it that is also really important is like, I don't remember any of the like meat and potatoes of what we ever talked about, I just remember being there with you and in the moment and enjoying this connection on like a soul level with you.
Yeah.
Because we've been friends for a long time, but like we we became more than just friends. Like we are connected in a way that even some people on that are blood family aren't connected.
Yeah. Like I
You and
said,
I feel like it's safe to say that you and I understand each other on a deep level.
yeah.
And
That's why at the top I called you my hetero life mate.
yeah, and like having that connection and having the memories of exploring that connection and understanding each other better is huge.
Yeah.
And that's part of why I feel like this kind of content is is good to reach people with.
Yeah.
If because it feels to me like we're letting people in on that connection
Yeah.
and to experience it and maybe even be a part of it in some small way.
Of course, and if you are watching live, you can ask questions via the chat. Maybe someday we'll have other ways of interaction, but for now, if you ever have questions or you want to chime in,
Is
just
this going up as a VOD? Are you putting this on YouTube or?
that was the plan actually. 'Cause you can't have VODs anyways. Um, but I also have been in this time of restructuring and rebirth of the content creation train that is, all this. Um, I did kick up the dust on the old YouTube, and I've been putting VODs there, but I figure I could probably put this here, put that there too, and then just make a separate playlist for
Yeah.
Welcome to
Or
the
maybe
Family.
eventually make a channel for this,
Yeah, and we'll just move them over there. It would just it'll take some kicking around and figuring out exactly how to make it happen.
Yeah, yeah.
But we'll get there. Is
We
the
will
important.
get there.
We will get
We'll
there.
do it.
But big thing too for me is produce, just to show how the meat, talk about the meat and potatoes of how it works. You're on Discord right now, and I'm streaming your video, or I'm onto the channel just through OBS and all that, and it's been fun to sit there and fiddle with OBS and find solutions and problem solve. And that's kind of what we talked about yesterday or the day before when we were playing with all this, is that, it's it's fun to problem solve. It can be really annoying, and half the stuff that you just figure out and go, "Oh, it works. I'm not touching it now." Until it
Right.
breaks again, and then you fix it again, and
Well,
then
there's
you don't.
something to be said about a thing that you put work into, and
Yeah.
I don't want to sound like some gym bro on TikTok showing off washboard abs, being like, you can do it too if you just put work in. No, anything that you put effort into because you want to, and whatever that result is that is yielded feels good.
Yeah.
It feels great, and it's been fun for me to problem solve in that, like, kind of more so within myself, but that whole notion of like, okay, well, we want to make content, we want to put a podcast out, what are we going to talk about, how's it going to work, how am I going to have my end of the setup, and like, am I going to be listening to Twitch, or am I going to listen? So like right now I kind of have the stream up so I can see what it looks like, and then I've just got the Discord window up, which right now is just my video because of how OBS is being, but
Yeah.
um it's it's so rewarding even if nobody sees this, you know and if you are seeing this, then great. I'm excited to have you around,
I did see
but
we had
even
up
if
to four
nobody sees
viewers.
this, like, we still sat down and did this. We've been talking about this for like a couple months,
We did the
and
damn thing.
now we're doing it, and so it'll be so interesting to see it, like, go up on YouTube and be able to go back and listen to it, and watch it, and
Speak
see
for
all the
yourself. I'm
problems
not
I have
watching
with
any
myself,
of
or
it.
it'll be great to say, okay, well, maybe now I'll have some interesting ideas on like how to have my setup and stuff like
Mhm.
that. Like what do I have in the background? Like with this napkin here that well,
Makes feeling better.
uh,
You can't really see it
uh,
in the
but it's
shot.
interesting how much you can see it in the background though. Like I've
Yeah.
got like a dice tray back here that you can kind of see that's covering up some bills that I don't want to remember are there, and
Yeah.
but so it's kind of important to me to know it's in the background and how it reflects me, and know like one of the things I've thought about right now is like I need to find a better way to mount my camera such that you can see more of the background, because like there's more to this painting that's behind me, and there's a little bit of significance to that symbol and stuff like that. But like now I know I want to get a camera that sits a little bit higher up, maybe at an angle, so like I'm not just head on, but I
Head
think
on.
overall our
Fly
setups
directly
look
to the head.
okay. But yeah, just the ability to have something that you want to work on that you enjoy is huge.
Yes.
It's enough to take the mind off of what's going on, and again, to get kind of deep and philosophical. And since somebody might watch this, if you're, and I say this because I was in this place not very long ago, but if you're just spending your nights or your whatever your free time just kind of sitting and wishing you had something to do or somebody to talk to, and just kind of consuming content and doing nothing with yourself, and you're feeling down on yourself, the first thing that I implore you to do is find something to put work into that you like. Whether it's like I'm an artist, whether it's if it's drawing, if it's a video game, if it's like a puzzle book, even just something that you enjoy, that you can put some effort and some thought into, that like activates you a little bit. It will change so much for you.
Absolutely. And I think too, one thing I found, I'm 28, you're 28 as well. But we haven't been in high school 10 years now, and
Yeah,
I've
this year.
I've uh I did the college thing a handful of years ago, and you obviously got training and
Well,
learning in the military.
I dabbled a little bit with college, but it just wasn't for me.
Right. But one thing, unfortunately, I didn't really find much joy in until the final, my senior year of high school was learning, and that could have been for various reasons, but the important thing is that I found it. Unfortunately, after you get out of high school, unless you can fork out the money or you go to the
Yeah,
military, it's hard to
yeah.
find ways to like learn. Like just say I'm
Well,
gonna learn a thing.
there are websites now, and
Sure.
some of them are like paid and stuff like that. Like you can get Skillshare, not sponsored. You can get, you can go on
I
these
don't think
websites,
anyone's
or
questioning whether that.
even YouTube. Like
Yeah.
I watch a lot of, well, maybe not a lot these days, but I have spent a lot of time in the past. Like I've watched everything that the channel Hello Future Me has put out in regards to writing and world building. Because as a writer and a world builder and a forever dungeon master, um, I find a lot of joy in creating story and building a world and understanding the nuances of how that works and how people engage with it. And I've been running a D&D game for a little bit over a year now, with some friends, and they've told me, and I'm not saying this is a brag, I'm just telling you what they've told me, but they've told me that they think I'm better at weaving a world together than people like Matthew Mercer, which I don't believe to be true at all, because that guy's a fucking grand wizard of world building. The guy is like a god. But the people that I play with say that they're like, you're really good, and I'm okay with agreeing with that, because I've put so much effort into learning how to do it.
Yeah.
I've consumed hundreds of hours of content that are just teaching their audiences how to do this better.
Right.
And that's just YouTube. It's just YouTube.
Yeah. I always had a hard time with just like how to do this and loading up a YouTube video and like
Well, you got to think. You don't
figuring it
gotta.
out that way. But
You have
what
to
I
think about it not in terms of how to do, and more in terms of like, gathering information.
right. But what I was gonna say is one thing I have been using is Duolingo, which kind of gamifies it, but it's really helped me learn Japanese, which has been really cool because that's a language and a culture. Because I'm a big weeb.
Same.
um, that I've been
We
interested in a long time. So learning that language, or learning any language, but specifically learning one that fascinates me, it's been interesting to go, oh, okay, so this is what this means, this is what this means, or reading, learning the characters and that, and then being able to go back to, things in pop culture, anime, movies, games, etc., and go, oh, I understand that now. I can read that, or I can get really
right.
close to reading that. I'm I'm like real close to being able to read Hideo Kojima's tweets without Google Translate. It's gonna be great.
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
but
So
um but I've been kind of doing that. Um
I've always also been interested in learning another language, specifically, well, Spanish, because I would be able to use it a lot.
right,
Um, but like German or Japanese, German because it kind of goes back to my like ancestral roots, and um, I pick it up really easily in the like pronunciation
right,
vein. But Japanese because I'm a weeb, I'm interested in the culture. Um, I'm interested in being potentially being able to speak to people who speak Japanese.
right.
It fascinates me, but the problem with that is like, and it's a hump that I'm trying to get over. But like, I just don't have time, dude.
Yeah.
I don't
Well,
have time to do stuff. Like, there's too much life happening all the time.
yeah. Well, and
And
maybe
like this house, like I just bought this house a couple months ago,
mhm,
and it's been nonstop the entire time, just problem after problem. It's like fighting a fucking hydra. Every time I solve one problem, two more pop up. It's like, oh man,
Hail Hydra.
keep seeing me doing this because I have to pop the stress out of my neck.
Yeah. I mean, one thing, that is nice though about things like Duolingo, and I don't know if there's other ones, but I use Duolingo specifically so I can speak to it, is
You have to pay for that?
you can pay for it, and I do, but it's like I think it's like $10 a month, so it's not that much. But what's nice is A, you can do as many different languages as you want. So you can do Japanese, German. Hell, they have Klingon on there, or they have I think they have Elvish. Like it's kind of wild.
I did a little bit of digging on YouTube and found a couple of content creators that make like free how to
You
speak
know.
X language content, which I think is huge. But I
Well,
don't know what the quality is in comparison to something like Duolingo or.
well, what's nice about Duolingo is A, it kind of gamifies it, so it shows you, a list of like, all right, here's this module that's all about, the basics, and then here's one on food, and here's one on, you know, locations. But when they're teaching you those, it's not just like bread, rice equals Gohan or blah blah blah. It's like how do you say I want rice? How do you say it's rice? So
Right.
it's not just learning this means this. It's how do you insert that, and here are the little words
I'm not sure that that would work
that
for like.
insert.
I mean, it would probably work for me, but I'm not sure how much I would be able to dedicate that just because it feels so much like school. Because I struggled a lot with school just because of the
Yeah.
way that you interact with it.
Well,
Like sitting at a desk for long periods of time, like
yeah.
looking at a screen or looking at a chalkboard or whatever,
So I
and like
can't.
doing homework and stuff like that just
Yeah.
doesn't vibe with me. Like I even tried it in I tried it with college courses. Even the college courses that like I only took a few, but like even the ones that I liked, like there's one that I took that was interpersonal communications,
Mhm.
and it was just a class about talking to people and the nuances and the science behind like how this stuff works. And I really enjoyed the class, and I was involved and active in the class, and the teacher really liked how I performed in class. But I still, like, every time she gave an assignment, I was like, oh, I don't want to fucking do this. Like, I just want to do the school during school time and then
Yeah.
log off.
Well, and that's kind of a nice thing, not to, again, we're not sponsored by it, but I really stand by it. That's nice about Duolingo is when you first create your profile, it asks you how much time do you want to dedicate to this? Do you plan on doing 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15, all the way up to, 30 minutes an hour? And then it bases the way it teaches you around that. So for me, I put 15 minutes because I was like, that seems reasonable. But the way it teaches you is it has like 5 different like different lessons for each module, and it's stuff like it'll say, okay, it's gonna say the word to you, like Gohan, and then it gives you multiple choice of which one is what does Gohan mean, and you click on rice, and you go to the next one, and then it'll flip it, and it'll have the word rice, and you have to pick Gohan, or it'll have you type it eventually. Uh, it'll
Well,
teach you how to say it in a sentence and type it.
I'm interested to see how some of this YouTube stuff works
Hmm.
because, when I get around to it, because I think that there's something to be said about passive learning.
Yeah.
Like I said, I learned so much about writing and world building just from watching and listening to videos. Like I said, and I consume content all the time. Like, I think I would say that like 40% of my day, I have, like, even on days off, I have an earbud in, at least one, listening to something. And
Right.
if I'm like, I put so many hours into learning about writing and world building that I began to apply that knowledge in a practical and effective way without realizing that I was using the knowledge until after the fact when I thought about it and talked to people about it. Like,
Hmm.
oh, I learned that from Hello Future Me, or oh, I learned that from Adventuring Academy with Brendan Lee Mulligan. And like realizing as I explain it to people, because I have a couple friends who are aspiring DMs, and they ask me
Hmm.
questions, and I explain this, and it's not like I'm just regurgitating information like you might do in like high school. I'm speaking from a full understanding of the concepts that I'm bringing up, just from passively learning about it. And when I say passive, I mean like not doing anything. You're not doing homework. You're not involved in a module. You're just listening to something and going about your day.
Well,
And
just if you
I think
do
that
that,
it doesn't work for everybody, but I think that there's something to be said about like the idea of passively learning while I'm doing something else.
well, just promise me if you do that, you won't do it in your sleep. I don't want you to wake up and all you can say is omelette du fromage or something.
No, I
We have a
avoid,
podcast to do. I can't have your language being all fucked up.
right, no, I try to avoid consuming content while I'm asleep for personal reasons.
Well, I know we used to. Me and you both did it, and I don't do it anymore either. But we used to just shove earbuds in our ears and blare
Well,
music.
yeah, I think that's a thing, but I mean, like, I don't know. I just have a history with, and you know this obviously,
Yeah.
but like the audience doesn't. But I just have a history with dreams and some pretty traumatic stuff, and so I try to stay away from too much, other than like maybe some light music or some like
Right.
white noise, brown noise, or like rain sounds or something like that. Like I try not to consume content while I'm asleep because
Right.
of how I worry that it'll affect my my REM state. I guess you could say. I don't know.
That's fair. And I do agree with you about, passive learning and watching YouTube videos and that being
Yeah,
a form of
yeah.
research. One thing I do personally, and I usually do it when I'm trying to sleep, And it's weird because the more I've watched, the more I'm like, oh, I know exactly how they're gonna do this because I've watched so many videos. Is watching like restoration videos of like lighters or game systems where
Sorry, it was a long day.
oh, you're fine.
Oh, man.
They they don't talk anything. They have subtitles, but it's all just them sitting there, putting the rusty knife or rusty, pieces of metal in the
Right.
deruster, and then, doing the paint thinner to get
Well,
the
it's
paint
even
off
the
and all that
thing where
stuff.
like take somebody for example that like maybe watches a lot of like the TV show Alone, or just like survival type of stuff.
Mhm.
And I'm not recommending that anybody ever try anything that happens on a survival TV show. Like, do not do that. It's
Except for
not
maybe
safe.
Bear Grylls.
Most of those people are either highly trained or have signed waivers and stuff like that. Like, it's
Yeah,
dangerous. Don't do it unless you know what you're doing or you have somebody that does. But like people see that kind of stuff and think like, okay, well, like here's the thing is even if you don't actively learn it, like if you see somebody using like a bow drill, for example, um, to start a fire, which is just a stick that is curved with a piece of cordage in it that you wrap once around a stick and it's connected on the other end, so that when you crank it on this stick and you hold the stick steady,
stick
it
spins
spins in
back and
place. So
forth.
you're not just doing this,
Right.
you know. It's a tool that helps you and it helps start fires because you can create a lot of friction with that. And it's like
Mhm.
even if you don't like actively get taught how to do that, having seen it happen, like if you're an avid watcher of a survival show and you watch 4 5 6 seasons of it, you're gonna pick up some stuff.
Yeah.
Like you're gonna start to know like what certain plants look like, and you're gonna start to understand how certain skills work. So even if you're just like dog shit at it when you try it, if you ever need to, or if you ever try to apply it in like a camping situation, like you might be like shit at it, but you'll at least have the knowledge of what to do.
Right.
I think that's huge, and I think that that can be applied to in a passive way in a lot of ways. It's just unfortunate that the world works on paperwork and diplomas and stuff like that. But like, there's a lot of people who learn things and know a lot just from speaking to people that I work with, as normal people that I would have normally wrote off. Younger
Mhm.
me would have just wrote off. Like just speaking to people. Like I worked with this guy who, before he worked at the factory that I worked at, was a cop, and before that he was a professional, like an amateur but a professional MMA fighter. And like he knows everything there is to know about dealing with a problem situation or with somebody who's being belligerent. And what he came out with, it was just be nice basically,
Yeah.
but he knows how to apply it. And it's the type of thing that you don't get from book learning or doing a module or doing homework for
Yeah.
you know
Well, and
like
it's funny you talk about that because I know probably the most influential teacher I had in high school, and I would guess might be up in the top, five for you, was a teacher by the name of Mr. Pratt, that we had in high school, and his whole class structure and teaching structure were based around, I'm not going to give you homework, I'm not going to make you do worksheets and stuff because that's not how you learn in the
it's
real world,
it's simply not how people learn.
and it's
And you
not
can,
it's a waste of time.
right, well, you can talk to anybody. Like there are certainly academic people who learn a lot from having a book and doing the worksheets
Mhm.
and doing stuff like that. But when you start getting to like collegiate level people who are going for doctorates and stuff, they're doing their own research
Right.
and making their own determinations and learning by that process.
Now, don't get me
Because even
wrong.
that, even if you're book learning in that way, it's still something that you're doing actively to consume information in your way.
Right.
I detest the idea of like, okay, here's a curriculum, do this curriculum and then do homework associated with that. I hate that model because I just don't think it works. Like I feel like if you talk to people who went through like just high school and that were very studious and um that maybe didn't go to college or did go to college and didn't really get a too crazy degree or anything, but like just went through, like, yes, they did the college and they did the Berkling and they probably know some stuff from that. But I would challenge you to find somebody who remembers fucking anything about any of the deep nuanced like dates and times and peoples from a class like fucking geography in 7th grade. You know what I mean? Like, you're learning stuff actively in the moment and you probably know that information for a
Hmm.
while, but like anybody who's out of high school for more than a couple years is like, I don't remember shit from high school. Like,
Yeah.
I got out of high school and immediately never used any of that stuff again.
Yeah,
like
and
like
I
you know,
mean,
a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Who uses that on a regular basis other than a specialized worker?
I mean,
Fucking nobody.
well, yeah. My but I mean, there are some things. Math, you know,
Well, I'm not
science,
saying it's not
things like that
important to understand those core classes and stuff like that,
well,
but
but I'm saying with math and some sciences, biology would be a good example, or chemistry, sorry, not biology, chemistry would be a good example. Ones that are more um like cut and dry. 2 plus 2 is 4 no matter how you cut it. I think book learning and memorization, which is essentially all a lot of homework is important, but when you get to things that are more in
more nuanced.
yeah, more nuanced, there's more room for interpretation. Now, obviously you go into something like English and a preposition is a preposition, but
Right, but like you can't
you can have more of a
you
conversation about
okay,
it.
you can teach somebody, but like in the way that at least we went through high school, you can't make someone a better writer just by being like, here's a book with a worksheet, do that.
Right. And I
Like, you
do
have to take
think
the time. You have to have teachers like what's her name? I can't remember her name. She went to school for like 14 years and did like archaeology and stuff. Little short, little old, kind of bitchy lady that was an English teacher at school. I learned so much from her. I learned so much, and she like complimented my handwriting,
mhm,
and I learned a lot. But go to like, some of the other teachers that were just
right.
like teaching out of module books and giving out worksheets to do, fill in the blank, like that shit. It's just
Yeah,
busy work. It's all
it's
just
yeah,
documentation for the school stats. It's not for
right.
learning. It's
Right.
not.
And
And I think that it's important to know. I'm sorry, I gotta finish this thought.
you're fine.
I think it's important to know that the quality of learning is not based on whether or not there are worksheets and books, but is in fact entirely based on how good the teacher is at teaching it.
Right.
But the fact of the matter is a lot of teachers are pushed into the corner with, do these things, give them these workbooks, give them this amount of homework per week, give them this amount of tests per semester, and there's they just can't squeeze in a kind of lesson plan that they like. Like
Right. They're
somebody like Mr. Pratt was probably just given free reign, like, here, teach this subject. We need another social
they
studies stuff. Yeah,
thankfully gave him kind of whatever he wanted. Now, it helped that he did a lot of fundraising because he had a lot of experience in fundraising, but I think with Mr. Pratt, and I speak on him, I don't mention other teachers because I don't like to talk bad about other people. I don't want to. That's not. I don't try to put that negativity out there. But um, Mr. Pratt, he was all about phone interviews with people like Holocaust survivors, things like
we
that.
had we had one
Um,
phone interview with um the voice actress for
Snow White.
Belle
Oh,
in
was it
the
Belle?
it was Belle in the original Beauty and the Beast.
I remember that because
And that
I
was
was
amazing.
I was the lead on that phone interview. I was so hyped for
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
She
that was
was
great.
and it's interesting because a lot of the people that he either had come into the school or do a phone interview if their schedule didn't work out were people that were older
Yeah,
that I haven't kept up on all of them, but some of them aren't around anymore. And we have those experiences and those stories that,
I mean,
you know.
we had a video conference with the father of the internet.
Yep.
Like, the problem with it though is, and this is just like a school system problem, but like with our school specifically, which is a pretty small school,
Yeah, a very
there's
small
like what
country
30
school.
or 40 teachers total in that building,
Oh, that's
and
probably optimistic.
well, let's say that there's
Maybe
30
30 or
teachers
40
in that
now.
building. Okay,
Yeah.
so if there's 30 teachers in that building, and like two or three of them are high quality, like focused on actual learning
Yeah.
type teachers, then what does that say? You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that's 1% out of 100%. You know, like the other 99% of teachers, I don't know what the actual percentage
Yeah.
of like
Well,
three versus. I guess it's like 10%. So if 10% of teachers are working on that quality or at that quality level, you know what's, and I can't speak for teachers now, and I actually, funny enough, I started getting interested in this podcast. It's like I think it's like I can't remember what it's called. It's like it's a podcast that's just teachers
right.
talking about things and sharing funny stories and talking about the system and stuff like that. But um, from what I gather from that, like teachers are kind of improving, but for the most part, and this is why I'm saying like the teachers are constrained a lot. It's
Yes.
like the school system that we live with is not conducive to high quality teachers focused on teaching people things as
Yeah.
opposed to just giving out work.
Well, and
It's just
it's
not.
something to be said, you know, like you said, you know, I don't want to mention specifically what school we went to. I don't want to like, you know, get
Right.
specific on that,
I
but
didn't even mention the state that we live in, so
right. But I will say it was a small country school, and a lot of the teachers were teachers that, you know, very easily could have taught our parents. Definitely taught a lot of the students' parents,
I
and
know for a
they're
fact that we had teachers that taught my parent, like taught my mom.
right. So, I mean, a lot of them were there because they were always there, and there wasn't any type of push to like, all right, well, if you don't hit this quality standard, then we'll boot you. It's
Right.
it's a
They were
small
like,
country school. It's based
yeah,
on loyalty and
if
and
you know enough people, you can do whatever you want in this town.
yeah. Um, but you know, along with that, you know, a small school like that live and die by, all right, we got this much money. We can only do this much,
That's fair. That's fair.
and
However, it's still up to the teacher how they operate in their classroom.
sure, and some teachers did better than others, but I do stand by the fact that teachers would be better off and we would see a higher amount of quote unquote good teachers if they weren't so restricted by, all right, we got X amount of money for you. And, you know, I hear stories about teachers who they don't have, you know, the school doesn't supply them with enough pencils or X, Y, or
Yeah,
Z
like
thing in the class, so they gotta
a
go buy
lot
it
of teachers
themselves.
definitely pay for a lot of stuff out of pocket. And honestly, like we're talking kind of mad shit about teachers in general right now, but like mad props to teachers in general
Yeah,
because they're doing what they can with what they have, and they're really doing a good job. Um, I'm just trying to make a point of like the typical school system, like American school system teaching model doesn't work for a lot of people.
sure.
And I'm not sure what the percentage of those people are. It's probably smaller, but like the percentage of people who are like neurodivergent and have different like ways of learning things, it's like it's just impossible in a classroom of an average of like 30 kids to address everyone's learning needs. And
Right,
private school is expensive and homeschool is difficult. So it's
right.
um
And it,
like my kids for example are they're not in school yet. My oldest is 4, but just from having, because my wife is a stay-at-home mom for the most part, she works on weekends, but she has spent almost the entirety of their lives being home with them and interacting and teaching them things passively, inadvertently. And and when we go places and my kids interact with other kids or with other adults, we get nothing but praise. Oh, your kids are so smart. they're so polite, they're so articulate. Like, my 2-year-old is communicating in a cohesive way. Like he's kind of just starting to talk, really.
Right.
Um, not just starting to talk, but just starting to talk in a way where he's actually communicating.
Right.
Um, and he, like we just took him trick or treating. As of right now, we're recording this on the third,
Wow,
and
way to date the podcast. Thanks.
we yeah, well, here it is.
Now it's not
Um,
evergreen.
but like, we just got past Halloween, took the kids trick or treating, and my 2-year-old is walking around and saying thank you, and walking and saying hi to people, and he's not saying able to say a lot, but what he does is able to say he understands.
He's a man
You
of
know,
few words.
I get yeah, right. Um, I get nothing but compliments on how smart and agreeable my kids are.
Right.
And every time they're like, "How do you? Yeah, what do you do?" And it's like we just treat them like people,
Yeah.
and we allow them to learn and explore the world around them to within reason. And I find that, like, from talking to other parents and stuff, a lot of parents are doing it the way that we grew up. And I think that, like, you and I and a lot of others like us kind of found ways to interact and become better and grow, but a lot of people don't. Like, a lot of kids just kind of like do whatever they can with what their parents give them, and their parents are like, I'm not knocking working parents, but if the parents of the child, who are who, let's face it, are the primary source of learning for them, don't have time to sit down and articulate things to them and improve their speech by correcting them and teaching them that way,
Mhm.
then they're going into when they do go into school, they're going to school with somewhat of a disadvantage.
Yeah.
You know, like, and there's something to be said about temperament, and kids can be difficult, and I'm
Yeah.
not knocking that, but
Kids can be
like
assholes,
my
man.
my daughter, when she was 3 years old, was playing with, you know five, six, 7, 8-year-olds
Yeah.
as one of them.
Well, I remember I think the last time I really saw her was literally weeks before the pandemic hit hard here in America, and and our area. But I mean, I remember even then she was smart as a whip. She had
Yeah,
full
at 2 years
conversations.
old.
She was a little shy, which was probably smart because I'm an ugly looking
Yeah, yeah,
motherfucker, but
yeah. Fucking
but she was a smart kid, and she was very helpful, and I can only imagine she's gotten more so.
yeah, always wanting to help, always wanting to be involved, always wanting to interact, and you don't see that in a lot of kids. Like, a lot of kids just shy away and back off because they don't have enough interactions. And we encourage our kids to, like, interact with people. Like, when we go to the store, like, we're like my daughter look at me and be like, "Can I say," like, where we get to the cashier and she's like, "Can I say hi?" I'm like, "Hell yeah, you can say hi."
Yeah.
Absolutely, interact with people. And I think that most parents just, like, want to get the task done and get out of there. And so they want to be like, no, don't worry about it, just fucking keep to yourself and let me do
Yeah,
this
or
thing without worrying what your interaction with this person is. But you know and we're obviously protective of them in public. Um i i'm always strapped when I leave the house, so that's the thing.
right.
And we don't let them interact with people who are shady. We definitely encourage them to interact with people when they can. And like, if my daughter sees another kid and wants to interact, and she'll ask me, like, can I interact, and I'm like, hell yeah, you can. It's um
Right.
I think what I'm trying to circle back to here is encouraging kids of all ages, in school and out of school, to interact with the world around them is so much more beneficial for learning than handing them, a workbook or a bit of homework.
Right.
Just spider on my ring light. Just dropped in. Hello, spider.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Yeah, I think, with our high school specifically, it was a lot of,
Pardon me while I
location.
absolutely mark this spider.
All right, guys, let's
Go, no, go ahead.
let's watch.
Look
What?
away, kids. I'm sorry, little guy.
Well, anyways, um, I think it's a case of location. The fact that you know it was it's been much updated since we almost immediately after we graduated,
Oh, I'm
but
sure. I'm sure.
they
100%.
they waited till the moment we graduated to update all of it. But
Well, they had to
um,
get rid of our crazy asses.
yeah, I'm pretty sure a couple teachers said at our graduation they're retiring and it's our fault. But
I
um, you know,
don't think we were that bad, but whatever.
well, we weren't. We definitely had some class acts in ours, but that's here nor there. Um, we, I think we forget that because of the location, because of the fact that it was kind of a older school, all things considered. And a lot of the teachers were older. They didn't have a lot of the modern teaching, utensils and resources,
Well, I think they
and
had a mindset of like this is how things are done and how they always
yeah.
have been done, and don't want to break the mold.
Well, and being in a town that's predominantly farming, they, how much do you really need to know for
And I think that a
farming?
lot
Not to
of
talk shit about farming. I'm just saying, like,
well, there's a lot to know about farming, but you learn that through farming, though. You
yeah,
learn that
it's
through doing it, not through going to school. I think that there was also an intense focus on sports, and if you weren't playing
uh,
sports, then unfortunately, a lot of teachers just didn't care
yeah,
about you or what you were doing. And we
which
had a
is
few, like our American history teacher, who I'm not gonna name, but you know what I'm talking about.
yeah.
She was amazing. Um,
Well, and
she
and
was out to take care of the underdog kids, and she pulled me aside on multiple occasions and was like, you're so full of potential, you got to do this stuff, you got to get your butt in gear so that you can get opportunities.
right,
And I think it's important for kids to do well in I don't want people to think that I think that kids can just do not do well in school and just move on and learn for themselves. I think they should learn for themselves, but I think that doing well in school is important so that opportunities can open up for you.
yeah,
I'm just saying, like, it didn't work for me. I like the school model did not work for me, and I
sure,
like to think of myself as above average intelligence, at least in comparison to the population that was in our school. And
yeah,
I think that when you find, I think that it's just as important to separate kids who are obviously intelligent, just like you separate kids who are obviously at a certain level of detriment. Like you separate the kids who have difficulty so that you can cater to their needs better and so you can teach them and so they can learn and become members of society. And I think it's important to do the same thing for kids who are smart other than just putting them in AP classes.
right,
You know what I mean? Like if you see a kid and like listen, you are smart as a whip and you're engaging in class and you interact and you get involved in the projects that happen during class, but everything outside of class, the homework, the take home projects, the writing papers and doing all this, like you just don't do it. Why? And no one ever sat me down to ask that question. No one ever sat down to be like, why don't you just do the homework? Like, what's wrong with the homework? Because I would have told them that I think homework is bullshit. I learned nothing from it, and I'm not interested in doing paperwork
right,
to make the school look better. I'm here to learn things and interact with my friends.
right. Well, you interact with a friend. Yeah, I guess school does have a certain social,
I think I think
but
that I think that easily 40% of the purpose of school is to get people interacting with other people.
right,
That's the whole point. You go to a class with 29 other kids to interact with an adult person and learn from them. It's 40%, if not 60%, a social um, training camp essentially, because
right,
you a huge part of what you learn from school is the dynamics of social interaction, and everybody separates into their clique or their niche, and you have the sports kids and the drama kids and this and that, and it's a social thing. You're bunching up people with similar interests together with the extracurriculars and stuff. So it's absolutely social interaction is a huge part of school,
Right.
and
But
it's
I
it's
think a big issue with, and it's something that from seeing like my siblings go to a different, admittedly much nicer school, but a much more modern school than what we went to. They definitely do that way better, and they have way more variety to cater to. All right, well, like our school, we had, different classes we could choose from, but they were, languages. We had French and Spanish. That's it. When it came to, other things, we had band, choir, and that's it. And we had an art class, but those were really vague, like intro to 2D art, which, like,
well, let's be honest, we had an art class with an art teacher who was mostly just there to look at underage girls. So
he wasn't a great human being. To
it was
put
actually
it
kind of a piece of shit.
quickly and lightly. But my point is that they covered the bases, but they didn't really. They were broad strokes.
Yeah.
Whereas in, the modern school that I interact with now, through my siblings, they have a much more nuanced experience with a lot more diversity and a lot more
Well, that makes me feel better
routes to take.
about potentially sending, when my kids are old enough to send them to school,
Hmm.
I think that I'm going to be that guy that wants to know what the curriculum is and wants to know what's being taught in the school, not so that I can censor what my kids experience, but just so I know that I'm sending my kids to a school that is going to teach them.
Right, and I
And well, I learned more from being in band and interacting with the band director that was there before we got the one that we got for marching band.
yeah.
Um, and he was all right too. But I learned so much from the previous band director, and I learned oodles from interacting with everyone that was in band throughout my high school career until I quit band for reasons. But
As did
um,
we all.
as did we all, for a variety of reasons.
It was a mass
But
exodus, to say the least.
um, suffice to say that I learned, looking back at school, I learned more from interacting with people and like other students, and the few teachers that were really good. From I learned more from those things that more shaped me into who I am today than any of the book work, than any of the homework, than any of the
Hmm.
stupid projects. I learned more about that and life from that stuff, and it's really that's what's important.
Yeah.
like let's be honest, it is important to know some of that information from the bookwork because it sets the foundation for scholarly and academic pursuits that are huge and important for society. But I think it's also important to separate and recognize how these things are. Like, and I only have a rudimentary understanding of this, but from what I understand, in Japan, you go to like a sort of, I don't know what they call it, but a sort of like primary school up until like middle school age, like seventh, eighth grade type of age. And during that time, you're learning core classes and you have a few extracurriculars, and of course, there are clubs and stuff like that. But
Right.
once you finish like middle school, after that, that's when you go into the more vocational university type of schools. Like you get into like in Japan, you get into a high school that is going to teach you the craft that you are going to try to potentially do for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And they have art schools and music schools and welding schools, and they have a school in Japan for everything.
It's very much more nuanced.
well, it's not just more nuanced, it gives you what you need sooner. Because
Yeah.
in America, you basically you do general core classes for 12 years, and then they say, figure it out.
Yeah, it's more of
You know,
a jack of
Japan, it's like okay, now that you have this base knowledge and you
yeah.
know what you're good at and what you're interested in, what do you want to do? Now that you're, you know, like 13, 14 years old. Because in Japan, um when you're like 16, you're considered an adult. You're considered a
Right.
member of society, which I think should be true. Because like look at you know
I think
people like, not to just bring pop culture in, but like Billie Eilish, for example. Billie Eilish got huge, exploded into insane fame at a very, very young age. And granted, she came from like an already kind of like famous family and stuff like that. But like as like a 16, 17-year-old girl, she was making music that was affecting the world. So anybody that says that a 14 to 16-year-old isn't a contributing member of society has some serious perspective issues.
sure. I
And I
do
think that it's
think
important to nurture those people at that age to become something that is not. I'm not so much worried about societal participation, although that is important, as much as I'm worried about people going into what they want, because too many people, I would say probably 90% of people, and I don't know if that is a real statistic, but I would say that 80 to 90% of people in the world, or at least in America, hate their job or just do whatever job they do to make money so they can do the thing that they like.
right.
And that sucks. That's why nobody wants to work. That's why, which I don't think is true that nobody wants to work, but that's why we have a decline in workforce, because people now know after the pandemic what they're worth, and they
Right.
want to do things that they want to do, and they don't want to do things they don't want to do. That's why this whole quiet quitting nonsense has happened, because employers are starting to
Which isn't a
realize that
real
their
thing, but
employees, yeah, it's not a real thing, but they're starting to realize that their employees are doing precisely what they're supposed to do and nothing more, and they
right.
want to make it a problem. But the reality is that people aren't doing what they want to do.
Right.
And I think it's mostly because it was never nurtured.
Yeah, and to our own life experiences, because I'm sure yours was I'm certain yours was similar to mine. When we weren't great students, they kind of were like, all right, well,
They
you're
wrote
not.
us off.
Yeah, they were like, all right, well, you're not gonna really do much with what you've done, so
Right. And
we're gonna not waste the time.
there was definitely teachers that took notice and understood why we weren't doing well and tried
Sure.
to help.
Sure,
And they,
and
like, big love to those teachers.
right.
But the majority of teachers saw us like, and would, like, for me personally, would pull me aside and be like, and basically be like, what the fuck are you doing? Why are you here? Why are you wasting my time? Instead of being like, you know, what's going on? How can I help you? How can I make this better? I was made by my parents to go to my teachers and ask for extracurricular or extra credit work to bring my grades up, because my grades were terrible because I wasn't doing the homework and stuff like that. And call me lazy or whatever, but I just wasn't interested in it. I wasn't learning anything from it as much as I was learning from the classes themselves.
Right.
Except for a couple that were just terrible classes, like chemistry was awful. But like the way that our chemistry teacher taught chemistry was
I don't know
was
that I don't know if
it was
chemistry can be taught in an interesting way, though. To be
I
fair,
disagree. I think it absolutely can. There are people teaching chemistry on TikTok right now.
well,
Like, maybe you're
it's
not
definitely a
writing
different
down the
time too.
formulas and stuff, but like learning about chemistry and being like, whoa, this is really cool,
Yeah,
and then going to the collegiate level and doing the book work is something to be done. But like,
it's definitely something I
even
think
so, I
should be
think that
a.
even if there isn't a great way to teach chemistry, the way that it was being taught at our school was um
It was
was
subpar.
it was lazy, it was not creative, it was not fun, it was not interesting,
Yeah.
The only people who were interested in chemistry from that chemistry teacher were interested in it because they were already interested in it.
Right. Yeah, there was no like we're gonna get these kids into the thing. They were like, all right, well,
Right.
you're either in it or you're not, and
Yeah.
otherwise, I
And like
guess
how many
here's your
how many
grades.
students that went through that class could have potentially gone somewhere with chemistry but didn't? We don't know, and we'll never know.
Right.
Because that teacher was more worried about the sports that they were coaching than the quality of the class they were teaching.
Yeah,
And
and
it's
that's
my
endemic
opinion,
of a
as a
lot of
side note, it's my
country.
opinion that if you're going to coach a sport, you should coach a sport, and if you're going to teach, you should teach, and you shouldn't do both unless you can handle it.
I definitely think that that could cause conflicting interests
Yeah.
because
And you
especially
know
with
100% that the students that played sports and were involved in that stuff would have gotten extra credit, no problem, whereas I did not.
well,
I basically was like, my parents, we went to a parent teacher conference, and my parents went to this teacher and were like, is there anything that can be done? And he was like, he should have done the work in the first place. Fuck him.
yeah.
You know.
But sorry, I have a kitten in here and she just like randomly
For
decided to be.
reference to people who obviously don't know this teacher, this guy basically the entire class, and I don't mean on as a day basis, I mean the whole class was sitting in the classroom and listening to him read through the notes that he had written on the board and copying those notes, just copying them word for word. And that was
Yeah.
the whole class. That was how we taught chemistry.
I actually totally forgot about him. I think I had him for like a year and that was that. But
Yeah, well, he basically he just wrote the day's lesson on the board and then read through it and expected everyone to copy it down note for note, and then gave a test that was like whatever notes you have you can use, and it's just all the answers to the test. Like
yeah.
it was the laziest, like most pitiful excuse for teaching I had ever seen, and I hated it, and I didn't do any of it.
It
I
was
was like, this is fucking stupid.
it was very forgettable.
But you can't tell people that. Like you can't tell your parents that, and you can't tell teachers like, "Oh, why are your grades bad? Because this teacher is bad, and I don't care about this class
Yeah.
because you
Well,
can't say that
it's
because then you're the asshole."
it I think it's hard to in a location like where we lived because what other options really were there? We could, you know, say our your parents believed you, what were they
Well,
supposed to do?
none short of changing the curriculum at the like governmental level and what
Yeah.
the requirements are. Yeah, there's nothing you can do
I
about
mean, I guess they could have put you in a school, one of the other schools that were nearby, but there really wasn't a lot of good options. So, unfortunately, we just, those were the cards we got dealt. We ended up mostly fine, anyways.
that. There are some award-winning schools, you know, in a vicinity surrounding where we went. Like
Sure.
I won't say I'll send it to you in Discord without so since we're not revealing where
Well,
we
don't
are.
do it right now, because I don't
But
want it to accidentally pop up.
oh okay. Well
Send it
I'll
on Facebook instead.
yeah. Where's my phone?
Um,
Well,
but,
this school that I'm about to send you is award winning, like statewide an
yeah.
award winning school, and I know that you had a bad experience with it, but like
Oh,
we
I already know what
considered
you're going to say.
we considered living in this city because
Yeah.
the school system is so fucking good. And
Now,
I don't know if that's just based off of like test scores or whatever, but from gathering information it sounded like a really really good option. And
to be clear, my experience was probably due to the fact that I came into that school a month into that grade that I was in. I was already kind of shy and kind of awkward because I moved around a lot.
yeah,
I had a weird experience beforehand at the school I was at, and I
I think
was
you were
not
really having a hard time finding your place for a long time too.
yeah,
Like I think that
and there were other things. Now, there were a couple bad students or, bad apples that made my
yeah,
life difficult. With that said, that was that moment in time. That's not
Right,
that's
but you also at that school didn't have someone like me.
sure, well, sure,
Like it
but
was,
my
I
point
don't think
is
that I think you would have the same bad taste in your mouth for the school that we went to if it hadn't been the fact that we became friends.
yeah, you know, our group of friends were very important. But I think but my point is that, you know, I'm sure it's a good school. It's my dislike of it is more a dislike of the memory and
Yeah,
not reflection of the school itself, just a reflection of my experience at the school.
right. Well,
Um,
my point is that there were options, 100%. But I don't know that
sure,
anyone was doing what I'm trying to say should be done.
right. Plus, you know, that would have been a heck of a drive to take
Yeah.
you to school every
Well,
day.
it's 20 minutes.
And
But
but anyways,
yeah, I was gonna say I want to circle us back, kind of like to the primary topic and how we got off on that tangent. But like,
which will
um,
happen a lot because that's
yeah.
just how this works.
but like a huge part of why I want to do this podcast is to maybe be one of those people that is helping someone else learn either about something in the world or maybe even help them learn something about themselves or what have you, learn something of value
Right.
and put the vast knowledge of useless crap out in the world so that somebody can maybe make use of it.
And I want to make people laugh when they're driving in their car. And if you're driving in your car right now listening, why you're don't look down, just keep driving. Don't get in a wreck. Or do just let the wheel go. Just let the wheel go. Put your seatbelt on first, let the wheel go, and you know what happens happens. I'm going to leave a pause
Oh
for you to make
jeez.
that decision. Anyways, well,
Well,
this
if you're
has
still here, that
been
was a good decision.
this has been a great first episode.
Yeah,
I
we almost
think
did two
we've
hours.
talked a lot, and you know, I think hour 30 minutes, hour and 30 minutes to 2 hours is probably the sweet spot.
I
Um,
agree.
depending on, you know, if we ever have a guest someday, or you know, if we get on like a real deep topic, or if you know we have a real drunk podcast, because I think that could be fun to eventually just like have a real stupid belligerent podcast. I think that would be
Yeah,
funny.
dude.
But as I said at the top, I'm that Vanguard, aka Brad, your host. We're one of two hosts, um, with my hetero life mate and best friend Seth, aka Leader D, and we're gonna be back here Friday to do episode 2. What will the topic be? I have no idea. We'll see when we get there. Um, just kind of what we're feeling. Um, if
But thanks for coming, and you know, thanks for staying up with us. It's getting kind of late for some
yes,
of us, so
it is.
if you're here, thanks for coming, and thanks for choosing us to be your late night binge of content before you eventually get too tired to hold your head up and then go to bed.
If you want to get notifications, make sure you hit the follow button. I post notifications whenever we go live. If you miss a podcast, I'm gonna post it on YouTube at the channel That Vanguard. Eventually, we'll change it and edit it or add a new YouTube channel for it. But as for right now, that way you can have it. It'll be at That Vanguard. If you want to follow us on social media for updates or anything like that about the podcast or what we're doing creatively other than the podcast, you can follow me at That Vanguard pretty much anywhere and everywhere. Seth, where can people find
I
you?
I don't have a whole lot of social media presence right now, but it's coming.
All right. Do you have like an Instagram or something like that
Uh,
that
yeah,
for
I
art
guess.
that you might want to
Um,
show people or?
Yeah, I guess you could. Let me pull it up. I don't even remember what my Instagram name is. Jeez.
Wow, I give
Uh,
you a chance to pimp your stuff out,
yeah,
and you
shameless plug.
just
Yeah, you can follow me on Instagram at Conti underscore art. That's KANTI underscore art.
awesome. Well, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time, and welcome to the family.